Hi, Nicole R. Smith. How are you this morning? Welcome to Priceless Advice.
Priceless advice. Yes, I'm
Yay!
excited.
Yay! Coming to you live from my office slash music room in not at all sunny summertime San Francisco. Tell the loving audience where you're beaming in from today.
So I am beaming in all the way from Miami, Florida.
Da, 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 da,
Bienvenido.
da, 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 da. Yeah.
Oh, wepa, wepa.
I'm guessing just from, other friends and colleagues who are in the Florida-ish and Miami area that you do not have the San Francisco phenomenon of a cold, foggy summer. Is that true? You have
That is
a bright, sunny,
true.
warm, humid summer?
Yeah, and throw in, an occasional hurricane, but outside of that, it's good.
That's fine. Well, we have occasional earthquakes and we're used to it by now, so
Yeah,
everything's good. Well, thanks.
exactly.
It was so good. We literally just met through Karina Sadler, who's also got stuff on Priceless Advice and is a leader in the field, whatever, last week,
Yeah.
and we didn't record any of it, even though it was gold, but we talked each other's ears off and laughed for like an hour or more.
It was
So,
awesome. It was
and I
awesome.
was like, wait a minute, we have to make this official. Let's really have a talk and put it on the website and do a one or two part or whatever we do. And one, I always take Karina's recommendations of cool people to meet in the leaders of volunteer sector. So there's that. And you and I have, tell me if I'm speaking out of turn. I felt like we have an instant connection through the arts, the
Yes,
performance arts,
yes,
and just this idea that we each managed to come up with the title of something called Game On. I
yes.
did, you did an inspirational book, and I'll have you talk all about that in a minute. And I did a chapter in a top 20 trends for 2020 for volunteer engagement, Game On, specifically about gamification, and I did that webinar at Points of Light. But it's just, great minds think alike, and parallel genius, and all these other co-complements. But what got you what got you inspired to write your book? Because it came out a couple of years ago, correct?
It did.
Okay.
It did. So, quick backstory. I wanted to become a professional cheerleader, and I had gone to many, many, many auditions, and I actually started really late in life. I started, besides, like when you're like 3 or 4 years old and you do the class with the tutu that your mother
Right.
always wants to like,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but I started taking dance seriously when I was like 27. So I was in dance classes and all that at 27. That's like old and ancient. That's already like most people are like retiring by then. And so I already started out, older than everybody else. And every time I would walk into an audition, I would never say how old I was because I would never want people to realize how old I was in the audition. Um, so, but I had a lot of catching up to do. Therefore, I got cut an awful lot. I got
Oh,
cut, cut after cut after cut after cut. I mean, I can't even tell you at least 20, 23 times. Um, but the great thing about it is I eventually finally did make a team, but it was the persistence. And what really inspired me to really write this book was after, I don't know, like my 14th or 15th rejection at an audition, I saw a lot of hopefuls, like their dreams were just dashed and they were devastated and they were giving up and they were like, I'm not good enough. I'm not this, I'm not that. And I was like, no, 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 wait, baby girl, no. Don't let somebody determine your outcome of your dream. If you want this, you need to keep going after it. If you stop on your own terms, not because somebody said that you weren't good enough. Go to a different team. Go, or keep showing up until they're just like, oh my gosh, we're just going to take you. But don't give up because for whatever reason your worth has changed or the vision of who you believe who you are has changed. No, 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 no. And so that is why I wrote the book because so as far as becoming like a professional NFL cheerleader, it's still the dream. I was a pro cheerleader for another league, And so I was like, I'm going to be the person who writes the book, who is in the trenches with the people going through the challenge. I don't want to be that person who made NFL and then comes back and says, oh, you can do it. Cause it's all great because you made it. You're not still in there. You're not still trying. You're not still in the rejection and hurting and frustrated and going through it. So I wrote it to say, hey, I'm in here with it. I'm in here in the trenches with you. I'm twice your age because I have gone to auditions where I am literally twice their age, which I also don't say anything.
Yeah.
And side note, I stopped having side conversations with the girls because I would say something like, I don't know, and we went to the bank teller, and they're like, what's that? Because there's not really bank tellers anymore, right?
Yeah, it's all an app on your phone. So what do they
Right.
know?
So it'd be like, oh, I have to stop having conversations because I'm aging myself when I speak. So I was like, I'm just gonna smile and wink and whatever. But just, I'm in it with you. I'm twice your age. I've been cut 22, 23 times, or maybe no, I auditioned 23 times. I was cut 18 of them, but whatever it was,
Yeah.
it was a lot. But if I can get up and keep going, and this was only your third or fourth try, you can do it too. So be encouraged. And when life throws you challenges across the board, when you get cut, when you're frustrated, when things are going on, then that's when it's like, game on. Oh, you cut me again? Game on. I'm coming back stronger, harder, faster every time, no matter what it is. So that's what inspired me as far as writing the book, where it came from, is having to overcome so much rejection. But it applies to everything in life. Did your boyfriend break up with you? Game on. I didn't need you anyway. I'm gonna be better, and because of it. Did you, unfortunately, in the times that we're in, were you furloughed? Okay, life, game on. What are we gonna do? How are we gonna pick up and move forward and keep going? So it was just really just because of the athletic background that I've had, it was like, when life throws you challenges, you just shout back, game on. I got this. We're going to make it. We're going to make it happen. We're going to keep going forward, and we're not stopping until we make it.
Now, I want to write, I have my keyboards here. I want to write a theme song of like, not stop until we make it.
Yeah, like it.
Yeah, game on.
Game on.
Because we can't use Bring It On. Bring It On's already told that story.
Yeah.
But Game On, and yeah, and I was using it, Game On, is playing for keeps with volunteers, and a little more specific. But I love that idea that I think is really lacking sometimes, of just grit, just persistence.
Yes.
Just, you have to keep going. And I think carrying over from our backgrounds in kind of performance arts, and then now you're the leader of volunteers at an arts center, which is its own subgenre within volunteer engagement, leaders and volunteers.
Yes.
The main place that I volunteer my time is with local theaters, and sometimes paid, but usually volunteering to produce improv festivals, music festivals, events like that for local theaters, which we can't really do right now. Some of that's moved online, but it's its own thing. So you're also in this kind of sweet spot of career of volunteer engagement, where there's been a ton of surveys over the years. VolunteerPro, and Toby Johnson does one every year, but there's a lot of data that a lot of us in this career go like 3 to 5 years, and then we either burn out, or we shift to a different department, or we're like, I can't, the money's not enough, whatever the reason is, that it's just not a job that's sustainable. There's this huge drop off between like 5 and 10 years of experience.
Yeah.
And I've been doing this, 2002ish or whatever, but and then there's like the generation of people like myself that are 10 years or more, and there's people that are 20 years, 30 years. So you're in that sweet spot. You're sticking past that 5 years, and you had a lot of, we talked about in our original conversation last week that no 5-year-old sits around like, I want to design volunteer programs and manage volunteer administration one day. Like, that's like cheerleader, yes.
Yeah.
Musician, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Firefighter, yes. But
I attended everything. But I want to be a volunteer manager.
Woo! And yet you know, what got you excited coming into this career? Because we all come into it in a weird sideways way. So give us that superhero origin story of getting into it, and then also the arts part.
Yeah. So I was working in the marketing department of an arts center, a performing arts center. And I was actually getting ready to transition out of the organization because it's not what I thought I was going to be doing. And so then the current volunteer manager, or current then,
Yeah.
she was leaving and the position became available, and I read through the job description, and I was like, oh, I could do this.
A lot of transferable skills, but it's its own thing
This,
too,
you know,
as you
just
discovered.
yeah, just you're organized and you do this and da-da. I got this. I could do this. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. No idea. However, so I applied and I got the job, and I absolutely fell in love with it, but it also beat my butt for the first 2 or 3 years. I was like, what is this? Nobody told me it was going to be like this, you know? So, but it just, so yes, I'm coming into like my sixth, like 5, 6 year, but I feel like I'm just getting my footing. I'm feeling like now my foundation has just been built and solid, and now I can start growing and thriving. So I'm super excited for the next couple of years that are that's coming up, because I feel like I'm just getting energized. Like it's definitely not burnout. I'm getting like, whoa, all right, get the jets, fired up, because I'm ready to go. But that's kind of how it happened. I was in marketing, and I was able, one of the things that I loved about it is I was able to use everything from my college degree for the first time um, in this um, in this space. I was able to do writing. I was able to do some graphic design. I was able to do some public speaking and putting presentations together and working with people. It was just everything that I was good at on so many different spectrums. I was able to fulfill in this position. And I was like, whoa, this is amazing. I can be creative, yet organized, yet people person. Um, and where do you find that? It's usually one lane, but I'm like driving down like I-95 and just
In the
looking around.
highway,
All
lane
this.
by lane.
Exactly.
And
And so that is how I came upon this amazing profession. And I tell people I drank the Kool-Aid. I'm in it. I'm
in
in
it,
it.
in it to win it.
In it,
And
yes.
and I think it's so important. I want to, you're I want to amplify, one, you're an awesome person, and I want to amplify the voices in general of people who were at exactly your point, that we've passed the make it or break it, and now we're in it to win it. And
Yes.
I have that point myself, and I think anyone who goes into this as like a real career and doesn't burn out after those 3 to 5 years kind of gets it, and gets that this is challenging enough and fulfilling, and using renaissance skills, generalist skills, all these things that you didn't think were parts of your life, or skill sets or experiences that can be utilized in a career, that like, oh yeah, my music and my creativity or my communications degree is over here, but I did it. And
Right.
so part of that, like helping get that enthusiasm and letting everybody know that there are resources out there. Because like, what did you find? How did you realize that, oh, like we just last week talked about, oh, here's Alive, and they have a
Right.
mentorship program that you can be a
Right.
mentor or mentee. Like suddenly it feels like 3 to 5 years is where the eyes open and you start to realize there's a whole community. Is that what's been
Yes.
happening?
That's literally exactly what has happened. And I think, and it's absolutely what is sparking the fire, because for so long I thought I was in it by myself. And, and we were talking about, what the being volunteer management and leaders of volunteers, it's such a niche group. Very rarely do you go to a networking event and you have your little drink and they're like, what do you do? And they're like, oh, I work in marketing, I work in PR, I work in accounting. whoever says I work in volunteer management besides me, and then they're like, oh, so you're a volunteer? That's so nice. Like, no, no, no.
I get the money. I get paid for this. It's
Yes, I
worth
get
money.
paid
It's a
for this.
career.
Right. And then it's just kind of like, oh, and they don't know what to say. So they turn to the PR person and you're just like, wait a minute. So I always thought I was in it by myself. And I don't even remember. I know what happened. I had an opportunity to speak at a conference. And when I was at that conference, I connected with other people who manage volunteers. And it was like, oh my goodness. And then after that, our amazing grant writers at the Art Center, where I work now, found a grant from Volunteer Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the very first time that I had been in a room where I was not the only volunteer manager in there. It was like, I don't know, 50 of us. And it was like, wow, like people who understood what I was going through. There was just like nothing like it. And so through that, I became a great acquaintances with Audrey.
Yeah, I know Audrey Kidwell. I know her real
Who
well
is
from
a part
Alive.
of
Yep.
Alive.
Yep.
And she was the one who like opened our eyes to all of these resources. And I was like, where has this been for the last 3 years? Because I think we got the grant for the first time in my 3rd year.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh. So for those first 3 years, it was literally trial and error for everything. And I got beat up.
And you feel like you're reinventing the wheel. That's usually
Yes.
a department of one.
Yes.
No one at these other networking events relates. It's like this weird sense of otherness, and yet also like, I'm gonna do it. Like, I'm putting on a show. Like it kind of fuels that fire even more of like, I'm gonna show you all.
And so it wasn't until the 3rd year that I even knew something else like this existed. And then because I was networking more and more and more, then I was just coming in contact with more and more people and more things. And, you find Facebook groups and people are, they're like, hey, this conference is happening and this is happening. And here's another resource and here's another resource. And it's just like, oh, wow. Amazing.
It's like drinking. I call it drinking from a fire hose. Like you hit that moment, and it's like just like boom, 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 like popcorn going off in the most amazing, wonderful way.
It's just,
And yeah. And I want to give that experience to everyone who feels alone, isolated, department of one, and just broadcast this, not just on this YouTube channel, but through Alive, through National Alliance for Volunteer Engagement, which is multi-sector and at a high, trying to get these conversations of the value of volunteers as a core strategy to capacity building, like boots on the ground conversations with individual leaders of volunteers who feel like they're struggling and getting their resources, but also these larger conversations with leaders of major organizations, other professional associations, to say, hey, we're here, have us at the table. This is a career. And there's whole other organizations that are devoted to creating this as an academic track so that you can major in this. There's only, I think, a couple of places. I mean, I like your communications. I'm a jazz studies major. So if you want to hear, the history of Miles Davis's albums, like, woo, fun at parties, that's me. But it's like, and yet again, that creativity, that ability to improvise and adapt and be flexible and kind of go with the flow is so important. And I love that you have that communications and marketing background, because I feel like so many of us who get to a point of like consulting or teaching or training or speaking conferences, most of what I'm doing a lot of the time, the core thing that's interwoven under that is really corporate marketing 101 and PR and communications 101, because that's the thing that's usually missing. And all of our, giant tapestry quilt of talents that gets us in whatever weird direction, either from systems admin or personnel management or HR or education or marketing, sometimes marketing, usually development is kind of where people kind of come to it as a development or an education programs section
Right.
of an organization or government agency. But I watch people like struggle with the basics of marketing and communication, and I just want to like, here's your little kit. Just
Yeah.
there's so many easy, simple things where you don't have to, and it ties into recruitment, messaging,
Yes.
brand
All of
awareness.
that. All of that. Exactly.
Don't have to reinvent the wheel. And you also, I mean, one, I envy your creativity because I perpetually have books that I've outlined in Google that for like years I like, I've got these books. It's not just a great novel, but books about our sector. And I've even got a project manager editor who's like, how's that going? Like, I added a bullet point to my outline. But you've done it, so thank you. And you have a workbook that's for people in your exact position to like share the wonder and the joy and know that there's these easier systems of doing things. And
Yes.
that just
Yes.
came out, right? Is that pretty new?
The work
The workbook that you have.
journal.
The
Yeah.
journal. Sorry, the journal. Yeah, you
It's
describe it.
pretty
I'm
new.
doing it wrong. Yeah, you talk about it.
Yes, it is. It's actually very new.
Okay.
Um, and what it came from was the fact that every time I would get into a room of fellow managers or volunteers, we all felt the same. And it did not matter the industry, it did not matter your title, it did not matter any of those things. It was the same challenges that were across the board. And because I'm that person, I like to encourage people and cheer people up and just encourage them to keep going.
Literal cheerleader.
Like literally. I mean, I have the palms right there. Like, don't come in. But
Don't make me pull out my pom poms to get you
I'm
going.
telling you. But literally, and so that's why, and that's a whole other thing about like my cheerleading experience is literally who I am. It wasn't just what I was doing on the field, but it's who I am in general in life. It's just really encouraging people to, you can do it, you can do it. But one day it started with myself. I was so frustrated. I was like, um, you know, there are people who I work with who they don't get it. And
Yeah.
they don't understand that. And this was more early on. Let me also say that was definitely more early on, because there's been a lot of conversations, and my organization has come a really long way, and so supportive. But when we first walked into it, it was just like people kind of didn't get it. And I would be, there'd be meetings that would involve needing volunteers, and I'd be completely left out of the meeting, and I would find out about it later. And I'm like, oh, but y'all can't do that because volunteers, da 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 da. Or have you thought about using a volunteer to do this? Or they can do this, or da 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 da. And it was just, I would say in the last couple of years, I would start getting invited to the meetings. And even if I wasn't, the people who I work closest with would be like, hey, Nicole, I got invited to this meeting, but I think you should be in there. And they would start including me. So it
Yep.
started to happen and I was becoming, woven into the thread of things. And it was like, we have to consider the volunteers. So when this happened, it was things that I literally was telling myself to stay encouraged. And I was like, if this is working for me, surely it's going to work for my colleagues. So it's basically a journal
Mm-hmm.
and blank pages on the inside. But every other page is an encouraging phrase. So one of them is, you are worthwhile. And then another one is, you are seen, you are heard, you matter. And then one of my personal favorites is, you should get paid more. And then you flip the page and it says, no, seriously, you should get paid more.
Yeah. Push for a raise. Push for a raise. Yeah.
And so just, it was just a fun way, because, I'm a note taker. I write everything down everywhere I go. I'm taking my notes and and so I was like, it works perfect because I'm always writing notes. But then just, on the different days, it would just encourage you. And a friend of mine, she was like, my phrase for today are challenges can help you grow. Thank you. And I was like, well, because we got a lot of them today. Grow we will. But yeah, so that's essentially what I did. I created that for my fellow colleagues as a way for me to reach out to my fellow colleagues to say, We are in this together. You are not alone, which is actually one of the phrases. We're here to help each other and to encourage you, especially on those crazy days where you're like, why am I doing this?
Yeah. Why do I bother? Why am I here?
Yes.
Yeah. I want a nap.
Yes. It's knowing that you are making a difference and people do appreciate you, even though they may not say it, just all of those things. It's all here just to encourage you to get through the week, the day, the month, the year, etc. So that's why I gave you that.
I love it. I'm going to put the links to your talks and your books in the thing, but do a saddle jazz musician a favor and hold the book up steady to the camera so people can see it too. Just hold it up for a second. Well, I like that. I find that visually entertaining, but do a little like frame it up for me. There we go.
There we go.
101 affirmations for volunteer administrators. Yay! I think we're going to cut this into 2 parts because this has been a wonderful hour. So we'll get double dose of Nicole's awesomeness.
Love it.